Hello friends, welcome back. Welcome back to Innovation in Marketing and Marketing of Innovation. And we try to build up a case around product life cycle innovations or innovations in product life cycle for driving product life cycles in the preceding session. And I briefly mentioned that I would be coming back to you with branding of innovation. And I mentioned that when we are driving product life cycle, we have to look into the branding elements all through as well, because somehow we are going for line extension or those kind of things, and we have talked about that at length, that ultimately we have to look at it as a fresh life cycle after a particular kind of a stage. Let's imagine, and I would be going for different kinds of scenarios and we would be using a very good reference here as well. But let's imagine, because we have been talking about marketing of innovation with reference to value chain marketing, innovations in marketing and value chain marketing, and marketing of innovations with reference to marketing through and through, as far as keeping the whole value chain and value network and value web in view. That is how we are looking at as far as the whole scenario goes. And last time I tried to develop a junction between innovations in marketing and marketing of innovations, wherein I said yes, here we resort to innovations in marketing for marketing of innovations. So that was the key which I left for you. Now let's look at how we brand as far as innovations go. But when we are thinking in terms of branding of innovations, we have to visualize the complete value chain. I am not saying that we are choosing a name for our product and so we should name the complete value chain with reference to our product. No, that cannot happen. But that name can be lived by whole of the value chain. That name can be realized by whole of the value chain. That name can become true for whole of the value chain. That is what we can conceive. And when we are talking of name, we are talking, we are actually mentioning symbols and logos as well, because ultimately brand is the name, symbol, logo and so on. You can refer to the conventional definition of brand, and I am referring to branding with the same conventional definitional framework. So when somehow we are naming something, we are trying to put up the a consonance between the name and the positioning of the product. Here comes, in innovations, we want to be flexible with that positioning. So name has to have a broader meaning. I will be talking about that later on. Has to have a broader meaning, or sometimes it should have a scope of that kind of a flexibility which we require in terms of augmentation or developing the positioning or escalating the positioning in case of our innovation. That is one part. But that positioning which we are carrying at this moment, at this juncture, should be somehow realized by whole of the value chain, all the value chain partners, whole of the value network for that matter. They should be living with that kind of a positioning. What is Patanjali? That positioning, that name should be lived by all the value, whole of the value network. What is, as far as any product for that matter, you choose one product at this moment and you try to realize what is Honda Activa. Imagine Honda Activa at the time of it being an innovative product, and imagine when we named it Activa. Imagine at that particular level, that did we conceive that whole of the value chain and value network would live by that name basically. And that is where branding of innovation comes in. So one is that I would be talking about specially name, because name is the starting and the key point, and ultimately the brand lives with its name's connotation. The how customers and value chain partners and all the people associated with the brand decipher that brand, and they live with that brand and they become loyal to that brand. So name is a very important element. So but at this stage, when we put up a name, then we put up an association as far as of that name goes, with the logo or symbol of associated with that name, or even colors and designs and so on, as far as the situation goes. So name, logo and colors in association, and then several other things. even symbols, or let us say structure where we would be selling that product, and the internal ambience and so on. Somehow we have to conceive that thing at this particular stage. That is one part, and I would be revisiting that part later on as well. But then we have to conceive that how this complete architecture in association with specially the value chain and value network living with this name and the branding which we have generated around this product, how they would submerge themselves or support this as far as the whole branding scenario goes. For example, Nike, this symbol, the name Nike, what we are offering in association with as far as our innovation in shoes go, the kind of shoes Nike is developing, the innovation they are doing in shoes. So, in marketing they are doing every innovation which is required in association with that particular product, but now how they are dwelling upon that brand Nike, that is one part. How they are putting up logos, Nike logo is one of the most talked about logos in this world, so you know better. Then how we are putting up colors in association with that, that is the other part. Then how this complete architecture in terms of who would be wearing Nike for what. They initially would have thought of people who would be sport loving basically. So, their architectural perspective went around sports. Today if you visit Nike showrooms, you would realize for walking, for jogging, for running, for general usage, for lifestyle, there are different sections, males and females as well, and then there is some overlap as far as the both some gender neutrality in as far as the shoes go. So you would wear, you go to their showrooms and you would realize that shoes represent different kinds of sections for different kinds of perspective people would carry. That is one part. So, what they are developing that architecture around that brand in with reference to what kinds of usage may evolve in due course of time, that is one part. The other products are also branded that way, and they are getting into scenario with the association of whatever they have been projected in terms of as far as their shoes go. This is one part, but then you realize that the retail outlet which is owned and managed by someone else is living up to the branding of which Nike thought of they would do or they would live with. So, these people who are there on this spot, they are living up to as far as that particular branding goes. They are they have submerged themselves, they have merged themselves as far as this particular branding perspective goes. Now, when you are thinking in terms of this kind of an architectural perspective, you are including value chain partners in your thought process. That is one part. The second part is you are imagining where would people be jogging, would they be running now and then, or they would be health conscious. So, you are having that kind of an architectural perspective also. You are having an urban class who would be focusing upon these kind of things in due course of time, and how urban lifestyle would be there as far as the whole scenario goes. You are thinking in terms of school children, you are thinking in terms of youth associated with their future lifestyle, sports and so on. While you are building up this complete architectural structure around what kind of a positioning you should be having for what kind of customers, you are actually imagining this complete brand perspective which would get converted into brand value. In fact, you are imagining the complete brand value chain at this juncture with reference to propelling the innovation which you are doing as far as your product goes, and then how innovatively you would be steering that brand. That is also what you are imagining. You see, both ways. On one side, you are being innovative as far as the product goes, and putting up that with reference to as far as innovative positioning goes, or positioning it as an innovation. But on the other side, you are innovative enough to think in terms of how innovatively you would be steering that brand. And that is most important, and that is why I kept this section deliberately just after product life cycle description, because there we are talking of products life cycle, and here we are talking of driving brands through and through its product life cycle, or let us say we can say that we are talking about driving a brand's life cycle effectively. Here we are, as I said, we are talking about conceiving the complete brand value chain in an innovative form for our innovation. For looking into the details of brand value chain, just Google that and you would find the complete description there. Otherwise, you may just refer to Keller's book on branding, one of the most standard texts available in terms of as far as branding goes. So, you see, that is the first part we should be thinking in as far as the complete branding scenario goes. This morning in one of my branding classes, brand management classes, I teach brand management to Masters of Business Administration here at IIT Roorkee. So, this MBA classes. So, we were having this, some of my students, they were presenting on branding of nations, and very interestingly they were referring to Singapore case study, very interesting, and they were talking of a movie which was made or produced projecting Singapore as a tourism destination, and they were referring to how how innovatively this movie was projected as while showing Singapore, that people should come and visit Singapore. And then we started discussing brand architecture as far as whole of the country goes. So, that example also is very apt while we are talking of branding of innovation goes. You see, look at a complete nation with an innovative perspective, and look at nation branding as innovative method also. And you see, and when we are conceiving a country as a tourism destination, we just do not have to put up tourist spots as projections, or we just do not have to position the tourist spots also. We have to position the culture of the country also, we have to position the hotels and infrastructure also, airlines and connectivity also, local hospitality also, and several parameters. And the students were describing on how nation branding is being evaluated by different kinds of methods by different organizations, and they were mentioning about one or two measuring criteria which are being propelled by different kinds of rating agencies. And the parameters that those were being discussed included exports also, what kind of exports you are making out of country and so on. What I am trying to say here is that all of those things, they are interestingly connected to each other when we are talking about as far as branding of innovation goes. So, when innovation comes to your mind, when you are actually propelling innovation, when Apple iPhones were being conceived by Apple, they were actually looking at all the aspects associated with as far as the complete branding scenario goes. What would be the colors, what would be, how people would be using that, how people would buy it despite of being a premium phone, how how different kinds of software would be associated with as far as Apple phone goes, what kind of a software uniqueness Apple would project as far as their phone goes, what kind of data security would one go through, how they would support the customers, what kind of applications would the customers be able to use in terms of as far as Apple's this phone goes, what different other kinds of applications which are not being produced by Apple may be used by with Apple, if at all they someone wants to do that, if somehow it is applicable there, and how Apple Music would be supporting as far as the music perspective goes, and how this branding would come in consonance with each other as far as the scenario goes. I was talking to few of the senior most executives of Patanjali as an organization, and I realized that they were conceiving the complete brand architecture of Patanjali with reference to Ayurveda, yoga, yog. I should not say yoga, yog is the right word, although people say it yoga, and there are many ways on that. So, yog, Ayurveda, and then several different kinds of products which they are producing, the education which they are imparting in their schools, the university which they have come up, the partners which they have now, the treatments which they are offering through their medical practitioners, the retail outlets they have, the information and knowledge associated with the people who are supporting their retail outlets, everything in consonance with what Patanjali is positioned at. And that is where this complete branding in terms of innovation comes into being. I would deliberate upon this further, but let me take you to the first stage first, and this will open up several locks on the discussion we have just had in terms of the complete value chain and value network living along with the brand and branding which you are doing about your innovation. Because you see, we have found that marketing of innovation is a tough deal. People would resist in adaptation as far as the marketing of innovation goes. People would not so easily move from whatever they are doing at this moment or the kind of product they are using at this moment, and we have talked about these kind of things earlier as well when we referred to Daniel Kahneman and several other thinkers who have contributed a lot as far as the whole scenario goes. We talked about endowment effect also and so on. So, branding is a very important thing which supports adaptation of our innovation as far as the whole marketing of innovation scenario goes. Let us try to build up this scene from naming our innovations. I am referring to an article, The Best Way to Name a New Product, December 12, 2022, Harvard Business Review. And this is an interesting thing wherein the author provides us with a sort of a framework also and some thoughts associated with how to initiate our branding in terms of innovation. So, the article says that when an established consumer company introduces a new product, it faces a potentially make or break decision, potentially make or break decision, how to brand it, and they are calling it potentially make or break decision. That means they are talking about that this can, this step if somehow is not taken appropriately, nicely, methodically, then it may break the whole scenario as well. So, how to brand a product, how to brand an innovation. Tying it to an existing brand is tempting, as they say that once you are going for innovation, so tie that name with the existing brand. Now, customers are more likely to try a new product with a familiar association, and companies have to expend fewer marketing resources to launch it. They have to spend less as far as the whole situation goes. But the strategy has risks too, as the article says, and this is a research based article. Large research was conducted as far as for presenting the findings here. So, but the strategy has risks too, as the article says. Weak or failed brand extensions can harm the parent brand, definitely it does. An example is given in the form of that when the maker of Coors beer introduced a non-alcoholic beverage, Coors Rocky Mountain sparkling water, customers were confused with some wondering about its alcohol content. Sales of Coors water and Coors beer suffered and the new product was ultimately discontinued. I personally do not subscribe to the examples of alcohol and alcoholic drinks at all, but here the article mentions about that, and this is appropriate that alcohol consuming customers could not gel with the softer image somehow, I do not know. So that is the perspective which author wants to project here. So, and some other examples are also there, but before that Larisa Kovalenko says that a strong existing brand is a strategic resource for managers wishing to introduce a new product, but they must be careful not to kill the golden goose, and that is what we are referring to as far as the whole scenario goes. You see, and there are three scenarios which are being projected by as far as this discussion goes. So, there are three branding strategies one can opt for, as the article says. New brand, an entirely original name, as when example they have taken is Coca-Cola launched Dasani bottled water. So, they did not go for Coca-Cola bottled water somehow, probably they had their own lessons or research would have told them this. Then there is another aspect, direct extension. when we are talking of branding strategies. So, an existing brand name plus a descriptive word or phrase to qualify that brand name, for example, Tide washing machine cleaner. So, Tide is a known name and washing machine cleaner is the product. Then there is a sub brand element. So, if it is a sub brand, so we can think in terms of as far as the branding strategy goes, in terms of being a sub brand. So, an existing brand name plus a non-dictionary or non-specific word or phrase, for example, Ole Prox, Arm and Hammer Complete Care, sort of. So, you have just qualified that with the as far as and then converted into a sub brand goes. Now, let us see how this scenario is further built up. So, there are 5 product and firm characteristics that guides the most successful branding choices. And you see, when we are thinking in terms of branding strategies, so there are 3 largely which the text refers to, and then there are 5 firm 5 product and firm characteristics as the guiding elements. So, fit with the company's other offerings. So, that is a simple kind of a thing that we have an offering set, we have product lines available with us. So, we try to match whatever we are putting up as an innovation with the present offerings. Innovativeness of the new product that can be projected. The breadth of the existing portfolio, that can also be the reason as far as or the characteristic which is associated with branding of innovation goes. The risk of brand dilution is again an element which we have to think of, and amount of advertising funds available, that is a very major thing. You name anything, if you do not have larger funds to communicate to the deepest of the parts of as far as your market goes, if you do not reach there continuously putting up or increasing the frequency of reaching to the customers might not affect that much, or customer would not retain the name of your innovation as such. So, now let us go into the details of these 5 characteristics. Fit with the company's other offerings. So, when a new product does not tie in naturally to an existing brand portfolio, customers may become confused or put off that product, put off if that product uses a familiar brand name, as happened with Coors Rocky Mountain sparkling water and another short-lived beverage, Frito-Lay lemonade. These 2 examples are being used by the authors to describe that somehow it didn't fit with the company's other offerings as such. So, in instances of a clear mismatch, it would be more advisable for managers to establish entirely new brands. This is precisely why Coca-Cola Company unveiled its non-carbonated sports beverage under the name Powerade. So, that is what they thought of, that somehow we should name it differently, so that somehow it does not mismatches as far as the whole scenario goes. It is a clear mismatch as far as the product perspective goes. So, positioning has to be different. Let us go for a different kind of a branding as far as the whole scenario goes. Then, and you see, here you would have started getting this idea that because we are naming it differently, we have started ourselves looking at it differently, and we are conceiving a different architectural framework as we have talked about just preceding to this discussion. So, then second element, innovativeness of new product. Innovation carries inherent risks, which is why companies introducing genuinely novel products typically ought to launch a new product to safeguard their existing one in case the venture does not succeed. There is a risk and it would adversely affect to the existing products. So, we should be careful. So, in 1990s Unilever launched Persil Power, a detergent featuring a unique cleaning formula. Within the United Kingdom, it was positioned as a sub-brand of the well-established Persil detergent. Unexpectedly, customers who used hot water in their washing machines found that their clothes were deteriorating after being laundered with this new detergent. Unilever had not anticipated this issue, and the majority of its testing had been conducted at lower water temperatures. As they were focusing on lower water temperatures. So, consequently, the company recalled the product and discontinued it, albeit not without tarnishing the reputation of its flagship detergent. The breadth of the existing portfolio has to be considered. So, when a company owns many active brands, odds are it can find a good fit for a new product, and so should favor a direct extension brand name in simple terms. If you are a Procter and Gamble, you will find it much easier to tie a new product to an existing brand than a company with only a few options to choose from, Kovalenko says. You see, Procter and Gamble is a large reputed company and they can do that because they have large product portfolio available with them. Risk of brand dilution. Some companies introduce so many products under one brand that the brand loses its magic. An example of this is the luxury brand Pierre Cardin, which after successfully diversifying from fashion into perfumes and cosmetics experienced declining profit margins, revenue and brand value due to its expansion into a multitude of unrelated product categories such as Pierre Cardin, baseball caps and cigarettes and so on. And you see, after a particular stage, customer doesn't knows that, or somehow confusion gets created on what you are basically. And branding is basically, branding of innovation has to be seen with an innovative kind of a perspective. Innovation is the main word, and because we are talking of branding of innovation. Amount of advertising funds is also an element which is very interesting. Firms lacking the resources to provide strong advertising support should avoid the capital intensive task of building a brand with an entirely new name. On the other hand, well funded companies can take more daring steps as they have a greater likelihood of successfully launching a brand new name in the market. Funds are definitely there, but when we are talking of innovation, we have to be innovative in, even if we are using larger funds, and that is the most important element which we are talking of. You see, the point is we have several scenarios, but the most important element is that we must look at product life cycle, driving that through an innovative perspective while building upon innovation all through, and converting our efforts into establishing our branding while being innovative as far as branding of innovation goes, and also being, also while being flexible in terms of if we have to augment that brand, because ultimately whole of the product life cycle scenario can be imagined as a brand's life cycle at the end of the day. And you see, innovation is all about being innovative all through the life cycle of a brand. You recall any of the brands you like or who have been, which have been surprising you all through their approaches, through their products, through their communication, through their distribution, through their reach, through their service, through their new introductions, through their perspective, whichever way you want to look at it, look at them. They have been, living with this keyword of innovation while we are talking of marketing of innovation and branding of innovation as such. At the end of the day, we realize that marketing of innovation is all about being innovative all through. I will be coming back to you with lots of insights on different elements which would, take us to a conclusive level, that how we can learn or how we can foresee innovation in marketing and how we can use that for marketing of innovation. I will be coming back to you. Till then, goodbye.